Hello guys, it's Ebird Online and I'm here with another special from before the 90 days. So I did promise you a couple of specials this week and I've already done one on Geoffrey, so if you want to have a look at that, I'll link it at the bottom of this video. But today I want to talk to you about Big Ed. I've spent countless hours prevaricating on the whys and wherefores of Ed, and if you think I'm going to spend 1 minute longer, you're absolutely correct. This video is going to cover the 20 red flags of Big Ed. There were more, but I had to whittle it down to the top 20. People say Ed's dangerous and I find little evidence for that. I just think he's quite simply a selfish, deluded narcissist. I'm going to break down for you guys all of my evidence for it. Thank you so much to everybody who thus far has subscribed to my channel. Please, if you haven't done so already, just press that red button and make Ebird a very happy Ebird. Also follow me on Twitter at mbird99 and don't forget to like and share the video. So for anybody who doesn't know who Ed is, here's a quick rundown. Ed's an American guy from San Francisco who's otherwise known as Big Ed. That's because he's 4'11". Wide. I think he's 4'11" high as well actually. And Ed's 54 and has just recently struck up a relationship with somebody called Rose from the Philippines, and Rose is 23. They met on Facebook, and so what this video is going to do is look at all the issues that Ed has created with his behaviour, and also look at some of the wider socio-political issues that are caused when rich Westerners go to find their mate in poorer countries. And we're also going to take a little look at the mismatch of power as well. So I want to start up by saying I don't dislike Ed per se. I just dislike the way he's currently behaving, and I can't bear it when somebody treats the viewer as if they are goddamn stupid. Ed is trying to gaslight us into trying to believe that 23-year-old Rose from the Philippines who's exploiting him. Oh Ed, who the hell do you think you're dealing with, Caesar? And so let's get to it. Here begins my breakdown for the 20 red flags for Big Ed. So red flag number 1 is that Ed's already been divorced for cheating. So he got married I think about 28 years ago, and he was only married for a year or so, and he had a baby on the way, his daughter, and he cheated with another woman. His wife somehow found out, and that was the end of his wife and Big Ed. So since then, Ed tells us he hasn't had a relationship for 28 years, and he manages to try and make us feel sorry for him about this. Ed, you could have been happily married for 28 years, but you chose to mess it up, and so the fact that you're single now is nobody but your own fault. Red flag number 2 is the gargantuan age difference between Ed and Rose. So Ed, as we know, is 54 and Rose is 23, and it's my contention that this kind of massive age gap is virtually tantamount to an abuse of power. Ed tries to tell us, I'm in love with Rose, but they have literally nothing in common. They have no common points of reference. How could they? They're born in completely different generations. And although Ed brushes this off and pretends it's no big deal and age is nothing but a number, when he speaks to Rose, it's almost as if he's speaking to a child. Hi Rose, I wonder if you'd mind shaving your legs. And Rose, I think what I want to do is have you leave your child here while you and I go away and stay in a hotel because I hate your hometown. And he talks to her and treats her as if she's a child. His daughter's not happy about the situation as well, and she hasn't spoken to her dad, save one call at the airport, since she found out that he was dating somebody 5 years younger than her. And so red flag number 3 is that I believe Ed is absolutely obsessed with looks and beauty. So every time Ed speaks about Rose, he says she's beautiful, she's gorgeous, and of course Rose is a very good looking girl, but he never says anything about her character. He never says she's super funny or she's really interesting. It's always she's beautiful, she's gorgeous, she's hot. And also I noted when we first saw Ed and he was in his bedroom and I think he was packing for his trip to the Philippines to go and see Rose, I caught a glimpse of the wall behind him. There are pictures of scantily clad women and models all over his wall. I mean, they're all framed and I'm quite sure a lot of them are modelling pictures or photographs that he's taken, but I find it really weird that you'd have 60 photos of women in different states of undress. I think the number one important thing when looking for a mate for Ed is that the person's extremely good looking, and that's something that I think has led to him being single for 28 years. Red flag number 4 is connected to red flag number 3, and so Ed, as we've said, is quite short. He's 4'11". He also has some sort of disability and he's got quite a short neck, so his neck hasn't grown to the same length as everybody else's. And I think a lot of people watching him when they first saw him on the show felt kind of sorry for him and thought, well, it's really difficult for him to find somebody and that's why he's had to go to the Philippines, but just because he couldn't find anyone in the state. But I've managed to find this photo of Ed when he was 25. Now fair enough, he's still 4'11". That is not the end of the world. Obviously at this point I'm guessing Ed was going to the gym and he had a lot less weight on him, and so even though yes his neck is short, you can't massively tell from these photos. And it's my contention that most of Ed's problem is with his weight and not just due to his height and his disability, because it seems as if rather than work on his weight and work on himself, Ed would rather just go fishing in a poorer pool so he can find somebody with very little life opportunities and find a good-looking mate there instead of working on himself. Red flag number 5 is Ed and the so-called £5,000 that he allegedly spent on Rose. So as you remember in the first episode, Ed went to the post office and he was mailing some stuff to Rose in the Philippines, and he was saying, I've only met her 3 months ago, but so far I've spent over £5,000 sending presents to Rose. And we all thought, wow, how generous, until we found out what he'd been sending. He spent as much on postage as he did on the presents that he was sending. The second thing we found out was that all of the presents were for him. So the presents included pillows, Egyptian cotton sheets with 1,000 thread count, and a George Foreman lean green fat reducing machine. And he bought the grill so that he can make himself food when he gets to the Philippines, and he bought the pillows and the sheets because he has a skin condition, which means that if he sleeps on cheap sheets he comes out in a rash. So Ed tried to play himself off as super generous and he's changing this young girl's life for the better, but instead he was just sending presents for himself. And red flag number 6 was very closely linked to red flag number 5. When he was packing to go and see Rose, he bought a few cheap toys and sweets for Prince, her young son who's 4. And what did he buy for Rose? Aside from an engagement ring, which he may or may not give her, I think more than likely not, he bought her very scanty lace lingerie, and I think that's extremely presumptuous. Again, you're buying a present for yourself. You want to see her in this. It's not a present for her. And again, it smacks of rank selfishness. Red flag number 7 is the lie that Ed told to Rose about his height. So when they first met, Ed asked Rose, how tall are you? And she said, I'm 5'3", and he said, yeah, I'm about the same. And to be fair, he is, when he's wearing his 4-inch Louboutins. But when he's wearing normal shoes, Ed stands at 4'11". So Ed spent a lot of time talking to Rose on the phone. Obviously she spends money, whether it's in an internet cafe or on an internet connection, and all of this is under the guise of him telling her quite a big lie about his height. He knew it would potentially be a problem, but that doesn't bother Big Ed. He's only interested in the truth when it comes from Rose. When it comes to him telling porcupines, well, there's no big deal. So red flag number 8 is that Ed tried to force Rose to say that she liked him and that she thought he was hot when she first met him. This is notwithstanding the fact that he's 4 inches shorter than she thought and a good deal wider than she thought, and not hot. He stood in front of her and said, do you like what you see? Do you think I'm hot? Now, with all the best will in the world, Ed, there aren't many 54-year-old overweight men who girls think are super hot. And so I felt that Ed was putting undue pressure on Rose to say that she really liked him before they'd even formed any sort of meaningful connection. And it's just another instance of Ed trying to create the narrative that Rose thinks I'm hot, knowing that everybody else is going to think she doesn't really, she's just saying it because she wants his money. And red flag number 9 was when he'd met Rose for about an hour and they were in a taxi going to a hotel, and he said to Rose, have you ever stayed in a hotel in Manila before? And Rose went, yeah, I have actually, on New Year's Eve with a few of my friends a few years ago. And I think he seemed somewhat upset because he'd hoped that he was going to be her great saviour, showing her a life that she otherwise could never have dreamt of. But she managed to upend him by saying, yeah, I've stayed in a hotel in Manila before. And then he asked her, well, who did you stay with? And she said, just a group, and we all had one room. And he was like, girls and guys in the same room? You slept in a hotel room with guys? Ed, it was before she'd met you. Obviously Rose isn't a blushing virgin. She has a 4-year-old child. She has a past. Ed tried to make it sound super sinister and tried to make Rose feel bad for having stayed in a hotel room with guys, and even though it's before they'd met. And red flag number 10 was on their first full day in Manila. Ed had decided that he wanted to buy Rose some pyjamas, and so they decided to go to a market. And when they got to a market stall, Ed got his wallet out, but because he didn't know the money, Rose dove into his wallet and took some notes and gave it to the market trader. So all in all, these pyjamas cost, I think it was $3.80, and she handed him the equivalent to $4, and she said, keep the change. Ed said, keep the change? And he was massively upset over what amounted to 20 cents. And again, he made Rose feel like she was somehow ripping him off. And he said, I don't like people grabbing up my wallet. But Ed was the person who held his wallet out open in front of Rose. And so I guess Rose thought this was an opportunity for her to just take the notes and give it to the vendor. And Ed's tried very hard to portray himself as generous, but with one phrase, keep the change, all of that good work was undone. And I can't help but think it's a big shame that Ed can't count jumping to conclusions and running off his mouth as exercise. Red flag number 11. So Ed sat Rose down in a restaurant and he said to her, would you mind taking an STD test before we sleep together? And Rose was understandably quite shocked. And she said, well, I'll take one as long as you take one. I wouldn't feel comfortable taking one in the Philippines. I'm happy to take one when I'm back in America, but I'm not taking one here. Ed, you're trying to pressurize Rose into taking a test when you're not prepared to. You think that it's safe enough for her to have a needle from a Manila hospital, which I'm sure are absolutely fine anyway. So in short, that says, my life and my health are far more valuable than yours, Rose. That's what that says. And the second thing was, because he had an underlying assumption that they were going to sleep together, and given that they'd only met for one day, I think that was somewhat of a massive assumption. And when Rose refused, Ed stormed out, and then when Rose came back out, he started shouting at her and they started arguing in the street, and it also showed that he didn't care at all about Rose's feelings. Red flag number 12 is very linked to this. Ed started demanding at the same time to know about all her ex-boyfriends and her whole sexual history. Now, I'm a big believer in finding out what you need to know at the start of a relationship, because I think that the best predictor of future behaviour is past behaviour. But Ed kept demanding to know, where's Prince's dad? Is Prince's dad still in the picture? Where's your ex-boyfriend? And it was all too much too soon, and he asked her in a very demanding way, instead of the normal way that we would all ask each other, such as, what happened to your ex and why did the relationship break down? He literally wanted to know who she'd had sex with, and at the same time he gave literally no information about himself. Again, the information was all on Ed's terms. And red flag number 13 was slightly scary, and I almost missed this one, and a lot of my subscribers pointed it out to me, so thanks guys. But when he was in the hotel with Rose and he'd decided that this was the night that they were going to have sex, he walked into the hotel room and immediately said to Rose, go and have a shower and put this robe on. Whilst she was having a shower, he rang room service and got them to bring champagne, and then later on that evening they consummated their relationship. But what was really dodgy about this was the next morning when he was talking to production about it, he said, yeah, we had sex, we made love, and then he started laughing and said, I think the champagne helped. Pardon? So you at 54 think it's fair to get a 23-year-old slip of a girl drunk so that you can have your wicked way with her? Oh Ed, there's a name for people like you, and it's not Big Ed. And red flag number 14 was when Ed marked himself out as a little biatch. So they were taking the 3-hour drive from Manila to where Rose lives, and the further they got from Manila, Ed started to notice the neighbourhoods became poorer and poorer. By the time they actually arrived at Rose's village, Ed was sweating. Oh my god, I knew it was going to be poor, but not this poor. It's like a third world country. And when he arrived at Rose's house, he walked in and looked around, and then he could see that there were no doors and no windows. And he said, Rose, will I be safe here? Oh, I certainly hope not, Ed. But I guess that's what every woman wants to hear. Their partner asking them if they're going to be safe. As per usual, Ed's only concern was for Ed. And red flag number 15 is very closely linked. As we all saw, Rose is extremely poor, and she lives in 2 little rooms behind a shop. There are rats in the house, there are no carpets, no windows, no doors, and you can tell she lives a really hand-to-mouth existence. Ed was as shocked AF about this, and what I found quite disgusting was he'd asked her all sorts of questions about who have you slept with? Were you in the same room as guys on New Year's Eve? And these types of questions were his main focus. But he didn't give enough of a damn to find out, where do you live? How do you live? Now some might say, yeah, the benefit of hindsight, but really he had a massive clue. Rose's sister texted him and asked him for a little bit of money before he went to the Philippines, and that in itself didn't trigger him enough to say, I wonder if they are genuinely, really, absolutely poor. And as we see here, very clearly the answer to that is yes. Red flag number 16 is something that Ed continually does, and it gets my goat every time. He's always talking about, I wonder if Rose absolutely loves me. I wonder if it's a real love connection, or I'm wondering, does Rose just want me for my money? Ed, the last woman that wanted you for you cheated on. So we all know that this is some bull crap, and we all know that this is a very transactional relationship. He's buying her look, and she's getting a safe environment for her and her son, and potentially getting to America. But why I find it really sinister is that he's never said it to Rose at all, but he continually says it to production. So in essence what he's trying to do is paint Rose as some sort of gold digger or money grabber. This is supposedly the person he's in love with, and all of this when he knows good and well that if he wasn't dangling his green card, that if he wasn't dangling a Benjamin Franklin, she would be nowhere near. Ed's as disingenuous as he is stupid. Red flag number 17 comes after the first night that he spent the night at Rose's. So Rose sleeps on a little roll-out mattress. She doesn't have a proper bed because the room she sleeps in is the bedroom and more or less the whole of the living space. So after the first night, Ed woke up and he was absolutely soaking wet because it's rainy season in the Philippines and the roof was leaking in multiple places. And when Ed woke up, he was really unhappy and he said, it's the worst night's sleep I've ever had. I can't stay here. Rose, come with me. I want to go and stay at a hotel away from here. I can't stay here another night. And it just struck me at that point that you will allow Rose's 4-year-old son and even Rose when you've gone back home to continue sleeping under the rain, as it were. And instead of offering to mend the corrugated iron roof, or at least perhaps helping with it, you decide to take your money and go and stay at an expensive hotel. And this in itself is as selfish an act as I've ever seen. And red flag number 18, he asked to take Rose away And Rose said, well, I'm not sure because I've already missed my little prince. That's her son. And I don't want to miss him again, so I'm not really sure. And instead of saying, bring Prince along, we're all going to be a family soon anyway, Ed said, well, can't somebody else look after Prince? I just want it to be you and me, so that I can get to know you. And given that Ed's got a daughter himself, he knows good and well that nobody likes going away continually and leaving their kids at home. Red flag number 19 is Ed's lies about wanting a family with Rose, so he knows she wants 2 more children. And thus far, Ed's just gone along with it like, yeah, we'll have a chat about it, yeah, no problem. But really, Ed's told us in production that he doesn't want any more kids and that he's planning to have a vasectomy. So given that you've got different life goals, extremely different life goals, why don't you just leave Rose alone and let her find someone that can fulfill her dream of having a family? And you should find someone more age appropriate that's already had their kids and doesn't want any more. And the final red flag number 20, and that is the fact that Ed has decided to go online and to like very young girls in impoverished countries. And Ed has done this because it gives him somebody younger than he'd be otherwise able to attain, somebody fitter than he would be otherwise able to attain, somebody more beautiful than he would otherwise be able to attain, and most sinister, somebody more pliable than he'd otherwise be able to attain. So Ed wants to make sure he has all the power, he holds all of the cards, and he's sought to enter in a relationship where his partner would have no power. And so that's the end of my red flags. So what do we make from all of this? Well, Ed's saying, I'm not 100% sure that it's true love on her end, and Ed's trying to dupe us into believing that he's maybe being played and maybe he's naive. That's extremely dangerous for many reasons. One, it paints him as a victim. He isn't. Ed's just unwilling to deal with what life gives him, and is also unwilling to do stuff like work on himself, lose weight, and accept that he's no longer 25 and he can't pull a young hot girl. Secondly, it also paints Rose out as the aggressor when he suggests that she's trying to play him for money. She's not the aggressor, Ed, and you know it. She's somebody that's very desperate. There are rats wandering around where she lives. One of those rats could bite little Prince and he could die. I doubt she has health insurance. She lives as poor an existence as I've ever seen. There's rain coming through the roof. She has no running water. But yet you just keep on musing, I wonder if she wants my money. Of course she doesn't, Ed. She wants your double chin. And notwithstanding that fact, we're supposed to all buy into the Western ideal of you marry for love and nothing else. And he's trying to play on our long-held prejudices that to marry for looks is okay, but to marry so that you can eat and so that your child has decent chances in life, that's somehow morally deficient. Ed, I can say one thing, you've opened my eyes to this whole rotten scheme, because I used to think, well, they're both using each other, but after seeing your story, I realised that it's massively unfair. There is no mutual exchange here. There's one person taking advantage of another person's vulnerable situation. She's doing what she's doing for life's security and for the sake of her child. You're doing what you're doing to get your dick wet. Trying to escape crushing poverty for you and your child could never ever be seen on the same level as trying to fulfill a sexual fantasy with someone way out of your league, and by using your access to a green card and money. Sleeping where it's wet and there are rats on a dirt floor are all things which could reduce life expectancy significantly. How can this be compared to wanting a good-looking girlfriend 30 years younger with shaved legs? Marrying solely for love is a very, very Western concept. So my ideal of getting married is that I find someone that's funny and who's really clever, who's mentally stimulating, and also who's good-looking. We are very, very lucky to have the concept of love and the concept of a checklist, to have the opportunity to make these choices. Some people do not have that. So what we shouldn't try and do is measure the rest of the world by our standards as if they had the same experience as us. So guys, let me know what you think, and can you think of any red flags that I've missed? Last time I went on a little Ed rant, lots of people wrote in to say that they were offended by my opinions. Guys, you should hear the ones I keep to myself. Please press subscribe, like and share, and catch me on Twitter at Ebird99. You've been listening to Ebird Online. Ciao for now.